Then, after I've done that, I take it into ZBrush and do the final high-res sculpt on it. Final high-res sculpt is super detail-oriented. You know, at that point, I've got a lot of the small details in, but they're not 100%. So, clean it up in ZBrush, do like the small, like nuts and bolts type stuff, the super small scratches, things of that nature. Then I'll take it back out, go back into 3D Studio Max, and then do what's called a bake. And what that does is I transfer the details from the high-res model to the low-res model that you see in the game. So that uses normal maps, which normal maps are a type of map that is it's basically XYZ, so you have it gives you a more complete representation of the higher res stuff, but it's a flat map, so it gives you 3D information like on a flat map, which gives the illusion that it's more detailed than it is. But the high res is detailed, but anything smaller than about an inch or so, you know, on the character is usually normal mapped, because there's really no reason to actually build that in. So once we got all that, once we got the normal map and everything baked down, usually at that point I'll hand it off to Brian, and then Brian and Kyle will start to rig it and make sure that it works, and if there's anything, you know, from there on out that is a problem, they'll bounce it back to me and I'll adjust it. Let's see, from there I go to texturing. So I'll start texturing the model while they're doing that. I'd put UVs on it, so it's got texture maps and everything in place. I just have to bring them up to detail, make sure they're high res, make sure that, you know, it represents what it's supposed to be. Metal looks like metal, leather looks like leather, so on and so forth. At that point, after I've got it all textured and it's all working, I put it in the engine and start tweaking from there. Now the engine tweaks, I'll start dialing in the specularity, which the specularity is the, you know, like the glossiness, how light affects the metals or the leather, or, you know, again, it reinforces the look of the material that I'm going for. Luckily, the CryEngine has a ton of really fantastic material settings that have come in like super handy. I mean, it's one of the best engines I've worked with for sure, as far as its just the amount of stuff that you can do with it is pretty amazing on a material level. After I've dialed it all in, Brian is usually finishing up the rig at that point, and then we've got a finished model. And there's usually some tweaks involved. You know, if I'm in the engine and running him around and I see something stretching, or I see something pulling, or, you know, out of, or penetrating, then I'll go back in and do some tweaks to fix it. But usually at that point, man, it's pretty good to go. So the most challenging thing, I think, going forward is probably making sure that the characters fit style-wise and proportion-wise. Ergonomics is huge. It's very important. Obviously, when we design characters, we have to think about the spaceship interiors when we're doing it. It obviously has to fit within the structure and the ergonomics of what they're using. So, and that's a huge challenge because the suits are so vastly different. I mean, once we move forward, you have all ranges of stuff, you know, stuff from like big, bulky, solid metal suits, you know, down to like almost like pirate outfits, you know, with the privateer stuff. So all that stuff has to work in conjunction with whatever ship that they're using at the time. So that's a huge deal. It definitely is. The other big hurdle is the accessories for all the characters. I mean, you think about it, there's going to be hundreds of trinkets and, you know, different things that they can put on and swap out, you know, and there's also going to be things like if you blow off your arm, there's going to be like, there's going to be a mechanical arm in its place that you choose from. So all that stuff has to work together on every model to make sure that it doesn't break. So it's daunting, but I think we can do it. I have a good feeling about it. It's been definitely one of the coolest games I've ever worked on. That's for sure.
And we're back.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool stuff that Mark showed us there. I'm not sure about that hat though.
Makes them look a little.
All right, so Travis, we haven't announced this, but we have some giveaways, don't we?
Yes, we do indeed. So we got an AMD processor. It's an A8660K, 4.2 gigahertz, quad core. From our friends at AMD, we met them up on the E3 show floor. They did an interview with Chris, and then, in recompense, I guess, gave us 10 processors for his time.
So we have 10.